So, what are your thoughts on the consoles and ESO? So basically, that was one of the real big reveals at E3. The fact that they're going to have Elder Scrolls Online actually be released for PS4 and for Xbox One. So, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously, it's going to kind of divide the communities because they're going to kind of divide it up by platform. But what are your thoughts in the fact that it's going to be the first, that I understand, massive MMO that's released on all those different platforms? So let's start with Varwin.
Well, there's one thing I disagree with that you said, which is divide the communities. I don't really think it's a division. I think as far as it releasing just to PC, I think the PC crowd was really excited to get an Elder Scrolls MMO, but the console players were getting left out. I see it more as like an inclusion of those guys, and I think it's overall, I think it's a really good announcement. I think it's something that was necessary. You know, one of the biggest things that Elder Scrolls fans have always had is their game available on console and PC as well. And, you know, a lot of people that were writing into our show were saying, how come it's not available on console? So now it will be. And they're excited, and I'm excited for them. I think it's a wonderful thing. In this regard, yeah, I do. I think more options can't be a bad thing.
I am 100% with Varwin on this. It's not excluding a community or dividing it. It's adding more to the community. And now's the time. The new consoles are computers in a smaller box hook up to your TV. It's never been like that before, and you were wrong. There were other MMOs that did go multi-platform that were considered mainstream, but they worked out fairly well, but it wasn't the same thing as going from... The PC was miles and miles better. But now that the consoles are, in its essence, PCs in themselves, the way they're doing the structure, I don't see any problem with this whatsoever. It's nothing but good for ZeniMax.
I agree. I think it's a good thing, and I like that, at least from what I've seen so far, that whole balance of MMO and Elder Scrolls game, it's starting to balance more back towards Elder Scrolls, which is great for console players because that's, I think, what they're looking for. Less MMO, more actual, like, first-person slashing and murdering. And I agree that when it comes to the actual construction of the consoles, they're more like PCs than they've ever been before. And I read something today that I am pretty sure is probably illegal, but from what I found out, apparently the building of a PS4 and Xbox One is so similar to PCs, it will make ROMs like that much easier for new things.
Oh,
which,
wow.
I mean, that's how similar they are. And so, you know, don't do that, kids, but you can do that, kids.
Well, first, I just want to make sure, can the people hear me? Because before they were saying they couldn't. Can they hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so you're asking about the UI and how that would, like, limit things for the console?
Right. Or not how would it limit it, but, I mean, how do you think it's going to, you know, play in terms of I just can't imagine, you know, you having the same full UI that you're going to be able to have because
right.
you have a mouse and you can move things and you got your keyboard. I mean, what do you think the ramifications are going to be for the folks that are going to be playing with the consoles vice the PC gamers?
Well, like, for sure you won't be able to just, you know, obviously have a bunch of buttons you can go ahead and hotkey your skills to. So they're going to have some kind of, like, maybe a bumper system with a pinwheel type thing where you can select things to use. So yeah, it's going to take more time to just cast spells and stuff like that, which will kind of limit consoles versus PCs, which is, for me, a good reason for them to split consoles from PC. because there's no way that a console player is going to be able to keep up with a PC player for specifically that reason. So I was like, originally I was thinking it's like, well, why don't we kind of just link up at least the PvE versions of the mega server? But, you know, thinking about that though, with the whole UI system and everything, it just wouldn't make sense to do that because of that. And whose baby face was that? I mean, I know I have a baby face, but it wasn't me.
Mark, really
They still
quick.
can't hear you.
They can't hear you, buddy, and they're hearing all your Skype notifications.
Can you guys hear me? Am I coming in? I think it's my turn to talk. You gotta love the delay, right? Creates for
Oh, that's
such a
great.
nice
Josh,
awkward-
you?
Awesome, they can hear me. Okay. So yeah, I was super bummed when I heard this announcement, right? I don't want
Really?
any Cheeto licking, Mountain Dew drinking, Call of Duty playing, console gamers messing up my Elder Scrolls Online. That's just not right. All right, PC chosen race all the way. No, honestly, when I first heard this, I was super excited for it because I have a lot of friends that like to play on consoles. And although I don't particularly agree with that, I play on consoles from time to time. I was looking forward to them buying a PC actually for this next generation so that we could play together. And the only thing that has me down about this announcement, in all honesty, is the fact that I'm going to be separated from some of my friends. So it's much more of a personal thing, you know, since we know that Xbox and PlayStation 4 and PC are all getting their own mega servers. I'll no longer be able to play with those guys. That's pretty much the only thing I had. I know there are some PC, I guess, elitists out there that actually wouldn't have taken my first statement as sarcasm. I don't think that this game is going to be made any less for PC because it's being brought to the consoles. You know, some people, that's a major concern, and I totally get that. But we know that from the moment this game started development, it was developed with the PC gamer in mind. You know, years and years have gone by this being a PC game, and consoles, well, that's just a new development, right? So I'm looking at this not as like a console to PC port. If anything, it's a PC to console port. So yes, I'm excited because people are going to get what they want, and if they're happy, my friends are happy, I guess I'm happy too.
All right, Brian, what about you?
So, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them moving to the multi-platforms. It's just a bigger market for them to go after. But the one thing that I'm most excited for doing it is because there was the mega server, there was only going to be one server first. I think that was one of my favorite things with MMOs was the server first. So now there'll be three. And I think that we'll see a trend that the PC users are going to be the ones always getting the server first, just because that's the community. We're all hardcore, you know. There's like that difference between console gamers. And one of the users over at GameSkinny, I hope he's watching, Dale7656 brought up a really good point that the console users, for the most part, are going to be people who don't go for PC stuff anyway. They only play on consoles. So the MMO market is really strange to them. They haven't really played anything in the MMO market. So they'll end up being less critical of the game because it'll be really their first MMO. So I'm glad.
That was a consoleless stereotype.
Sorry.
So while you're on that, real quick, what was the or what were some of the console-based MMOs? Because I guess I'm just not thinking of them.
I got one for you. I remember this. Us old farts from back in the day remember Final Fantasy XI was on consoles.
Ah, yes.
The EverQuest Online Adventures, I believe it was called. That
Yes.
was on consoles.
PlayStation 2.
And what? Oh man, there was at least one more that I can think of, but I can't remember the name.
ECO.
Fantasy Star, yeah, Fantasy Star Online. Was DC Universe on a console?
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
Apparently.
But it was
There you
terrible.
go.
Ants is a modern one.
Defiance.
So there are plenty. I'm curious though if those, because I know Final Fantasy XI was made so you could play on console and PC together. The Elder Scrolls, not Elder Scrolls, derp. The EverQuest starts with an E. It's similar enough. The EverQuest, the EverQuest Online Adventures, that was just for console, so there wasn't anyone there. But there's two things I actually have question-wise for you guys that I'm really curious about what you think. First, would the console markets, like, would those worlds be smaller? Because I figure MMO players on PC, would there be a lot more people playing there versus those other worlds? If you split the worlds, does that make those servers smaller? And would they change the servers for console players based on, I don't know, console stereotypes, we'll say, and make it a little bit easier for them? And change sort of the... I don't know.
Let's say it this way. The console gamers make up 70% of the gaming market. So...
Fact.
Yeah, let me jump in on this one because I haven't taken a crack at the console issue yet for this question. I don't know. I mean, I think when the console thing was announced, there was like a lot of really crazy stuff being said around the internet. I mean, the console people were thrilled because they were getting like this. They were getting the new Elder Scrolls game where they weren't expecting it. The PC community was, you know, divided to say the least. Like I saw some pretty, you know, ludicrous statements being thrown out there. You know, people saying things like, a scientific study concluded that console players find arrow to the knee jokes 80% more amusing, while PC players are 100% less impressed by 360 no-scope headshots or something. I mean, there's like all the stereotypes for flying, and I mean, I can understand that. It is a different type of player demographic, but at the same time, I'm not sure that the market's smaller. And I think a lot of it depends on their business model announcement, and I think that the console edition may have some effect on that. I mean, that's like a whole nother question, but I mean, if you look at the Skyrim sales, for example, you know, all of the millions of box sales that they can get through console sales, it's more content. It almost, I mean, this is like, I don't want to say it because I don't want to jinx the game, but it almost guarantees ESO financial success. To a certain extent. I mean, reaching that entire new market. And so that gives them the resources they need to focus on content development, to focus on building the features and staying true to the vision for their game that they've been going for from the start, maybe without having to feel like they have to compromise that in order to, you know, meet financial objectives.
Another great thing is it's going to be an early launch title for these systems as well, which is another major point for it.
But can we agree there's a slight difference between like, this is generalizing, but between a console player who can play a game, pick it up, play for like however long and drop it, versus someone in an MMO community who is, I am committed to destroying this dragon and I will wait 6.5 hours to do so. Like that, those are two different types of people. And I don't know how they mesh, which is why I'm wondering, because they're on different servers, if those servers will have tweaks to things to make it so console players can keep their average, like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, or
Jesse,
what they're gonna do.
I sort of agree with you to a point, but the thing is my own personal experience is this. I've enjoyed doing exactly that in an MMO, and I've enjoyed, you know, picking up a controller on my console, playing a quick game of, you know, Gears 2 with my buddies online, and then just putting the controller down and then going back to an MMO. I think it depends on, I think a lot of people play consoles for a reason and then play MMOs for a different reason, and it's just sort of like a mindset. You know, what do I feel like playing today? Do I have the time to sit down and you know, play a couple of hours of, you know, World of Warcraft or Rift? Or do I have, you know, only a couple of minutes before I run out and get my chores done? So let me sit down and, you know, play, you know, try and see if I can get through that board of Gears. You know, a gamer is a gamer is a gamer. And I think the line between the old EverQuest guys on the PC back in the day and the old, you know, Modern Warfare dudes on console is really blurring very much as technology and software becomes more accessible to everybody.
Well, I think the positives of the console announcement, like, you know, some people have pointed those out, but the negatives, I mean, we can speculate, but honestly, the degree to which the console announcement might be a negative ends up being dependent on to what degree it impacts their developmental objectives for the game. I mean, will it change the way that they approach developing? Will it change the way they approach content? Will it change the way they approach UI? I mean, if they're still focused on building ESO to be an MMO that's successful on the PC platform, and then they adapt the UI for consoles and they make it accessible to the console market, then I think you can paint that as a big win for ZeniMax. But if it changes fundamentally the way that they're building the game in a way that the MMO market doesn't like, the game I'm sure will still be successful, but there might be more negatives to be drawn from that type of shift.
That's complete old stigmata. I'm convinced nothing needs to be changed for the UI interface to compensate for the controller, and that's it. The core of the game won't change because the consoles nowadays are PCs. And
yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying the core of the game will change, but I'm saying that, if their philosophy does shift, which I'm not claiming that it will, don't get me wrong. But, if they change it to target more to the console market, then I think a lot of the negatives that people have been pointing out you could make more of an argument for that. But if they stay true to their vision for the game that they've had since they began developing it, then I don't see this console thing as being a negative in any way.
Here's what, if I could just get one thing out real quick. I'm sorry, Jesse, to talk over you. Here's the one thing I've always been really excited about the development of this game. ZeniMax Online Studios has never walked away from the question, how is this an Elder Scrolls game? What makes an Elder Scrolls game? Whenever you hear about their design decisions, the first question they ask is, okay, but is that Elder Scrolls? And hopefully that helps everything out in the end. I'm sorry again, Jesse. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that then the question then becomes, and this goes back to my original question that I asked you guys, when it comes down to that console and PC user, what does that mean for pricing? Because going back to, even though I generalized, and you sort of agreed with me on this, is that a console player, a lot of the time, you're looking for a different experience when you play it, right? You're playing that while you're waiting for something to happen on the computer, or maybe you're doing like different things. Are they going to be willing to pay a monthly fee in order to play a game over what they're paying to have access to the internet to play games like PlayStation Plus or a Gold Pass on Xbox? I have no clue. So what does that mean for the pricing of the actual game? Could it be free to play?
What does that mean though for downloads and patches over time? Do you think there's going to be a different patching schedule?
That's what I mean. There's lots of things there that good thing we don't have to consider it, but ZeniMax does, because that's something that would affect console users. I guarantee a console user is going to stay away from a game where they have to pay extra over what they're already paying for it, just because that sort of I guess that experience they have already. Because if I'm on a console game, I pay for it and then that's it. I'm like, I don't want to deal with all your DLC BS. And I'm more likely on a PC to pay a monthly fee. I mean, hell, I did it for like 6 years in WoW. So I don't know. I don't know what their strategy there would be. That's why I'm asking you guys, I guess.
It'd be very simple, actually. It'd be the same thing you see in every MMO. It'd just be a patch run through. They would just delay the PC one a little bit to coincide with the Xbox and Sony regulations to pass through. So they'd be like, have everything ready a week in advance, let it go through Sony and Xbox, say, okay, we're going to release this patch on this day when they know all systems are going to coincide. That's what Gearbox does, for instance, with Borderlands. Every DLC, everything that they do patch always at the same time because they submit it for equal timing. So I don't think you're going to be paying any extra for patches or anything like that.
That's one of the things I really worry about, though.
Monthly fee, well, that's always on the table for them. There are games, there are MMOs, and I know some people will say that there isn't, but there is, that charge monthly fees. Final Fantasy XI was one of them, to play it on a console. So that's not saying okay, it's going to be on console, so it has to be free. That's not the case. It could very well go for a to play. In fact, it's easy enough for Sony and Xbox to say you can play this, you can have this game, you can play online, but because there's a monthly fee, we're not going to charge you to do Xbox Gold or the PS Plus in order to play this game, which is, I believe, something they're already planning on doing.
How different is the code, though? I mean, realistically, given the platform, I mean, what are the major challenges there?
Nice thing about this modern system is that Sony and Microsoft are trying to streamline the gaming industry. None of this, okay, well, we have to drastically change the entire engine just to fit the PlayStation 3 and then change it again to fit into the Xbox. the code is all streamlined because they're building the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One as PCs, and it's going to be only slight tweaks. It's going to be a coder's dream when it comes to porting multi-console.
Well, the architecture similarities between the platforms, I mean, that is a strength of the next-gen consoles. But in terms of development cycle, patch cycle, stuff like that, I almost think they have to keep them separate. I don't think they can delay patches for PC community based on restrictions by PSN or Xbox Live. I mean, if you've got a game-breaking exploit in an MMO, you can't wait to hotfix that just because PSN has, regulations on, on updating the game. So I almost think that I expect that the cross-platform development cycles will be similar, but I would be surprised if they delayed content to release it simultaneously.
They won't. Just look at DLCs and how they never seem to release on all the consoles at the same time. They always seem to be delayed between PC and console. So I definitely don't think you'll see delays between patches for the different platforms.
You won't.
All right. Well, I think we've discussed that one pretty thoroughly. For folks who are in the chat, if you've got a question, we've got a couple of moderators in there. We've also got a couple of devs. I think Jessica and I think Gina are kind of in there, the community management. So Gina Bruno and Jessica Folsom. But if you've got a question, just put question space Butnix or question space butt, something so that it's got butt in the name. I don't know. That's his name.
That's going to create some interesting chat conversation.
I know. That's why I have moderators. And just put your question after that, and then he'll collect them, and we'll do some questions from the community after this next question. So we'll go into it. Question number 2, guild systems. What do you think would be 3, and this is stacking a deck, and I realize it's probably an unfair question, but what would you say are 3 systems that are critical for guilds at launch for any MMO, regardless of platform? So let's just assume, for the sake of argument, take the consoles out of the conversation. Let's just assume it's just an MMO, the MMO. What do you think are pretty much the 3 systems that it's got to have at launch to make it a viable MMO? And we'll start with you, Brian.
Well, obviously, a ranking system, but I would hope that they kind of think out some cool tools for guild leaders, a calendar, and a roster. I mean, those are just the essentials, I would say.
Okay, Joe.
When it comes to essentials, an easy UI. I've seen too many MMOs lately that have very complex and stupid UIs for guild interface. That's going to be a big thing.
Something more than a chat system?
Yeah, something more than a chat system. Give your guild leaders options, options to manage your guild.
Okay, Varwin?
Really?
I think one of the most important things is guild banks.
Yes. I definitely agree with a lot of MMOs have been releasing without them. They're usually like, well, it's not going to be there at launch. It's going to be there.
Yeah. What's up with that? I mean, as far as I can remember, every MMO I've ever played at launch, there's always been, a guild bank system. I mean, it's
not for the last 3 years, man.
I know. What the hell?
Not even World of Warcraft had guild bank until several years into the development.
Yeah, all right, maybe my memory is flawed and.
No, but
sure
I mean, you're totally right in the sense that, I mean, how can you effectively do a lot? And I guess I'll jump in here. Is how can you effectively get your guild economy working if you don't have a guild bank? How do you craft and transfer mats and craft and provide a system so that folks can share with each other and kind of help each other out if you don't have that? And then like the granular levels of detail for the different ranks that would need different levels of access based on, if you're a techie, least privileges, or the bare minimum requirements for permissions you would need at your level to access the things that you need without, getting robbed blind, like I have actually in some MMOs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever. What about you, Andrew?
I think there's a lot of guild systems that go a long ways towards making guilds really sticky in the community. Banks are definitely one of them that was mentioned. I think a really functional roster, the ability to sort on all kinds of different features, annotations. I really like being able to put notes like next to your character in a roster, communicate with your guild, let them know like what crafts you have. You know, speaking of crafting, I think they could do some cool stuff if they do have a guild bank. You know, somehow allow guild crafters to tap into resources that are already in the bank, maybe without having to withdraw them or have some convenient access point if they're at a craft station. Being a Daok veteran, I'm a huge fan of guild heraldry. That's something that they've said is already not planned for launch, but if they manage to, you know, look at that further down the road, that'd be awesome.
Can you define what that is?
Right, yeah. So guild heraldry, meaning you can maybe choose a sigil or an emblem for your guild that's unique, or, you know, it's a combination of colors and a symbol, like from an allowable set that they give you access to. You're not like uploading your own PNGs or anything, but this is like they give you a choice. You can choose your heraldry, and then
So guild logo.
you know, yeah, guild members can like display that on their shield or on their cloak. Or if your guild is controlling a keep in Cyrodiil, you can have your guild banners like hanging outside the keep. You know, things like that. That's great. I think a calendar for scheduling events is a really good way to keep your guildies logging back into the world. I don't know, and I think customizable ranks is a big one, especially for ESO, because the Elder Scrolls lore has so many different types of player groups. I mean, I see on TF all the time players that are wanting to, you know, make one of the Dark Elf houses or make, you know, some other lore-appropriate group in game, and they've got all these like crazy lore ranks and backstory behind their guild. And I think empowering players to create those organizations in game can really keep people interested as well. So that's my take.
That's cool. What about you, Josh?
Andrew, I love what you said about the whole lore thing. It's very cool because I always liked the guilds where you could kind of like name your own ranking system just by typing in a field, and they made it really easy. And that harkens back to Joe's point about a very easy guild UI to use, because, you know, guild UI is something that has given me frustration in the past. You know, a simple task, even if it be inviting a member to your guild, has been frustrating in some MMOs. But I think like at the heart of this question is what a guild needs to succeed at launch and what they can do to help with that. And you guys confirm on this, but I think the only way to register your guild right now, or at least get a guild going for ESO, is their whole social integration thing. So if you want a guild, you would start a page on like Facebook or start a Twitter account for that. Am I right?
I'm not sure if that's still happening or not. It might be. They talked about that.
They definitely did talk about it, and now they've been hush-hush about it, and I hope that's because maybe they plan on launching their own like in-house system that's hosted on their website. And this is something that SWTOR actually did very well.
That would be amazing.
Actually, register your guild name, you know, you have your name all set, your members you can invite, you can even start your ranking right there on their site. And they also provided you with a guild forums right there on the site too. So it was all very consolidated, and when the game launched, they were all put into the same server. So I guess in this case, they would all be put into the same phase for the mega server, and it all went very, very smoothly. So I hope that's something that they'll adopt from SWTOR, because that was one of the things they got right.
A tax system at launch, right? That's something I think is paramount, and a lot of MMOs as of late have not had that, where you can just say, hey, 5% of whatever you kill goes into the guild coffers. That way you don't have to always ask for handouts, right? Mm-hmm. When you're trying to buy something for the guild.
Well, it depends on how they've developed their economy already in game at launch. Something like that may not be necessary.
Can we say guild's skill tree?
Well, I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, but you know, in terms of getting coin back into the guild, I mean, what systems other than like an inherent guild tax system do you think would be applicable? Because I haven't really thought of anything other than just the tax system, because that's so cut and dry to me. Do you have like any better examples or stuff?
I mean, there's always guilds selling on auction houses and stuff like that, finding various loot items and selling those. That works a lot of the time, especially if the leadership is active and in charge. They can handle that. But the tax system, I don't know. It depends on people, you know, not many people like getting taxed. So
History has proven this. Yes.
good luck with that. They need to have some form of representation, or you might be in trouble.
But I mean, you know,
Just saying.
if you have it built into the dynamic or the system, you're never really missing it, you know, because you're killing whatever, you're taking its loot, and you just see your money come in. I mean, how often are you going to really notice that 3% or whatever the percentage is?
If it's an auto tax off the drop, then that shouldn't be an issue.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. A dynamic that's built into the system that's like, you know, I could just go in and engage, hit everybody for 3% or 2% or whatever, and in that way, you never. It's like you kind of never see it, you never miss it, as opposed to saying every Friday, give me, you know, 100 gold or whatever, you know.
The problem I see with that, and this is something that I feel like would over time affect people, is those who are there at the event, they're the ones getting taxed. I mean, unless it's on everyone, but the people who are never online, who show up like a day a week, they're reaping the benefits of that taxation.
That's true. That is a very true statement, I guess. Yeah.
In terms
So-
of taxes, sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
No, I was go for it.
I mean, I'm a big fan of options, and I've been in guilds that have really successfully used a guild tax before, but I think the need for that is governed by the economy of the game, like some other people mentioned, in that, you know, do you have things in your game that are attractive and necessary for guilds to have money to spend on? I mean, they said, you know, no housing at launch, but guild housing would have been a good example of this. Like, could you deck out a guild house? Or, you know, suppose you've got endgame PvE encounters that you're doing as a large group with your guild. Are there, you know, consumables, or are there supplies that, you know, in order to be successful, you want to show up with those things? And so, I mean, if they have things in the game where as a guild you can benefit by buying them for your guild, then having a way to provision that money is really important, and it's great. But if those things aren't there, I don't know if, you know, like I said, it's all contingent on what is the economic balance that they're creating.
Right.
I mean, I definitely think that's a valid point, you know, and I don't think I considered that when I asked the question. I guess my concern normally with a guild starting any new game, which we tend to do like every 2+ years or whatever, is you're trying to figure out some kind of way to get to some kind of economic prosperity so you can start buying or having some money ready for the in-game guild stuff, like a guild whatever, you know, a guild hall, a guild bank. Like in Tor, you had to buy your bank, which was insane, you know. I don't know any place in where we got to buy a bank, but we had to buy a bank, and then, you know, but I mean, like in progressive systems, Age Conan, you know, had some interesting things. You know, you could buy different things to put into your little guild area, and then now you could reap those rewards. So, but relative to what you're saying, I mean, it definitely is food for thought. How about back to your comment originally? I believe it was Andrew. A meaningful roster. So, for example, where you can like right-click in your roster and actually make groups, invite people to guild, or I guess they're already in a guild, but, you know, start doing things. I mean, I know some MMOs that didn't even have that. It was just a glorified chat system where you couldn't kind of do anything, right?
Things like
make it easy
right-click
to
their
connect with
name.
members.
Yes, right-click their name and, you know, get information, do things like
Right,
that.
their professions and what they can make.
Yeah, you know, all that.
Can we also, this is my number one thing, and Elder Scrolls folks in the chat, please do this. Please, can we just have a thing that says the last time someone was on, like how long ago they were on, and more importantly, how long ago they were on if they like are in another guild. So if they're online but they're in like a different guild at the time, how long it was since they were in your guild? Because I feel like there's gonna be, like, if there's multi guilds you can cross guild, there's a lot of people who like, oh no, I totally want to be a part of what you're doing, but they're off with their friends for like 5 days. At that point, it's like goodbye, right? And I feel like having that little timer next to their name, like how long, that kills me. In recent games, they have not had that, and it is the worst thing in the world.
I think that they should give guild leaders an option to, for any of the members in the guild, they can't join other guilds. So like the people joining certain guilds can decide whether or not they want to participate in multiple guilds. You know, it's so that they can differentiate themselves from other guilds, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with both those. As a guild leader, it totally sucks because every MMO has its ebb and its flow in terms of whether it's popular or people kind of getting bored with it or there's not enough content or whatever. So you're going to always have like a peak, and then after a month or two, it's your numbers are going to kind of dwindle down, and then it's going to grow, it's going to contract, but yeah, if you're trying to maintain your rosters, for effective PvP, if you're open world or for raiding, especially if you have multiple raid groups, you kind of have to be like a business person to try to maintain your numbers. Say, okay, do I have enough healers? Do I have enough DPS?
Yep.
And if you
Nothing
don't,
short of a job.
yeah, I mean, and if you don't have a good enough roster system, and especially, and I'm so glad you brought that up, and you can't say, well, Joe, the barbarian, hasn't been logged in 5 days. That is going to hurt, in terms of the multi-gaming concept. I mean, the first game that I really saw that did that, and if there's others, I apologize, was Guild Wars 2. I didn't really play Guild Wars 1 that much. I don't know if I agree with that as a good idea. I got to be honest, as a guild leader, kind of like you said, if someone's playing in this other guild, then why would I want a person who's not focused on my guild and my friends? Because that's what I look at. That's the whole reason why I'm into the whole guild thing.
Right,
Those
it's
are
building a community.
Yeah, those are my friends. That's who I want to play with. I want to play when I don't want to play a game unless I'm playing with my friends. Why would I want somebody who's a scab? Why would I want somebody who's crossing the picket line? Why would I want somebody who's crossing the picket line to come play with me just so that we can do the raid? I understand you got to pug here and there, but I try very hard to not pug raids so that
Right.
it's only our guild, and it's really to some degree it's about the loot. You want to keep the loot in your guild, but it's more
Right.
about the fact that I want to play with Bob the Barbarian because I like him, not Joe the Barbarian who's a scab who's coming in. I will play with Joe because we can't get this raid done, but long story short, I don't understand the why. I mean, maybe
Mark.
someone can explain it to me.
Yeah, Mark, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in on something here for a second.
Sure.
All right. I know that you can join for your one account. Okay, you can join 5 guilds. Okay.
It's 5. I didn't know it was a number.
Yeah, it's 5. I believe from the last time I heard, I think it was 5, if memory serves, which it usually does not.
Time, it's okay.
So, real life application of this. Okay, there are going to be people out there that are going to say, I want this guild for, casual leveling up, and then I'll choose this guild for my hardcore raiding experience, and I'll choose this guild for my hardcore PvP experience. But ultimately, and just like we do with MMOs, there's going to be that one guild we always go to. That's my real guild. That's my serious guild. Those other guilds, if something's going on, I'll pop in there. Or like my other friend from this other place that I'm involved with, like he's part of this guild, like I'll join that. But I think human nature is people set up a home in whatever situation they happen to be in. And in this place, it's an MMO space. So your home is always your guild. There's always going to be that one place that you normally come back to. And
It's
I
like
think
Cheers.
you're going to go where everyone knows your name, Mark.
I know.
I sort of feel like what ZeniMax is really saying is you don't have to leave a guild if you want a hardcore PvP experience and that feeling of camaraderie. You can have both. All right? It's more options. And I think the real life application of this is I think most people are going to have that one guild that they're always with, and then there's going to be maybe one, maybe 2 others that they say I go here for this other experience, and I think it's really going to be limited to that.
Then the key has to be communication between people who have the biggest thing is if you have a raid coming up and someone's in another guild, how do you communicate with that person without whispering them and hunting them down? They have to be able to get a message between guilds. That would be key then. If I'm over here hanging out with my leveling buddies, there's something really big happening on my main character on the guild that I'm actually really a part of and I want to be a part of. How do I communicate that between the guilds and let people know that, hey, this is happening, which is, that the calendar that we talked about earlier, that's important. Things like there's a lot of stuff you need, because not being there but being online is just as bad as not being online at all.
Well, I think, one thing that's interesting in ESO's case is because ZeniMax is trying to promote all this social interaction. There's a couple of features, at least, that they've said so far about their guild system. So one is that you have the multiple guilds on your account. And two is that your guild associations are account-specific, not character-specific. So if you're online, if you're on your character, it's not like, maybe you're representing one guild and you're not representing your other 5 guilds. You'll have, I think you're going to have 5 guild chat channels simultaneously if you're in all 5 guilds. And so, I think people are going to be able to reach you. It's going to become an issue of, how much are people exploiting that? And, if you look at the roster, if, someone's, 20 alts are all showing up for every single account that's in your guild, it could be a nightmare to keep track of people. So, I agree with you completely. There needs to be a system where you can reach people and make sure you're all on the same page, but they are trying to make it more of an open-ended social experience rather than like, this is the group that defines you as a gamer.
Yeah, I don't think it's this evil bad plot. I guess I'm saying, as a guild leader, I don't know if I don't think it doesn't meet my personal comfort zone, I guess, is probably what it is. And obviously you got to put yourself out there and you got to expose yourself to new things, and we're going to do it. I'm just trying to say, inherently it bothers me. Inherently I just see what could go wrong, and so I'm definitely going to work for it. And talking to you guys, I guess, gives me different perspective on it. Kyle, what are your thoughts in terms of some of the the guild systems that they need in order to be successful?
Let me ask you guys. Haven't brought it up yet, but the whole UI modding. Do you think that will go towards guilds as well? So maybe they don't have that whole like last time you had logged in thing. Is that something you could add yourself if you're good at programming and stuff like that?
How much UI modding would be on a console, though? That again goes back to the console question.
That's true.
Yes.
Pretty much not much.
All I want, because I'm lazy, is I want to be able to add an event on a calendar, be it on like my guild launch or my Facebook or something, and automatically syncs to my guild roster in-game. Just because I'm lazy, and that's just something I want.
I'm sure.
Oh, and costumes. They have confirmed that there's like a costume system in the game. You should definitely be allowed to make some kind of guild costume so you can have all your members wear something like that. That'd be awesome, just for morale and stuff. So,
dude, Lord of the Rings Online. Lord of the Rings Online had a system like that where you could make basically a guild uniform, and so your whole guild can represent by all wearing Dwarven armor or all wearing, Daedric, I guess, or something, I guess, in terms of Elder Scrolls. Would it not be awesome to be charging into battle in Cyrodiil with your whole guild army all wearing the same armor? How cool would that be?
Or
That would be sweet.
what about the guild pimp cane? Yes. No.
Monocle and
Kind of like that movie Warrior.
Can't all be pimps.
Their own like themed guild or themed gang. We're the minds.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take some questions from the chat. So I guess the biggest question we're getting most is what made you guys choose the factions that you did? And from what I know, a large amount of us are actually looking at Aldmeri. Is that correct? So actually, I think everybody raise your hand if you're not Aldmeri. So everybody here is Aldmeri. So we'll start with Josh and be like, Josh, why Aldmeri?
Because the Queen, man. She's good looking. Have you seen those pictures?
Are you serious
Is
with
that
the
your
queen?
reason?
And her lieutenant, the redhead elf
I did
lieutenant.
it all for the nookie.
Yeah.
She's
the way she's
ridiculous. Oh
She
my
is,
gosh.
man.
Pretty donkey.
On.
Really? I'm the old perv here, and really? That's why you chose that? Come on. Come on.
You have a better reason, Jesse?
Yes. Here's the reason why. Based on the most recent game, I'm convinced a lot of people have no love for the elves as a race. So a lot of people are going to want to relive their Skyrim experience or play as an Argonian. So that faction, they're going to be filled with people. And then humans always have the most people in them. And I was like, what has the least? What's going to be the underdog and thus the best? You got to go elves with this thing. Elves and Khajiit. That's how you
yeah,
do it.
exactly. That's cats, man, and cats pooping in sand. How epic can you get?
Well, I'm not going to be a cat person. That's just silly. Cat people are just silly. You gotta be
cat people are silly,
badass
Jesse.
elf.
What is this crap?
Alright.
I am unsubscribing from you, Jesse. This is
There
bullshit.
needs to be a lick
Cat
ass emote.
So nice. So Joe, why is the Quest Gaming Network looking at doing the Old Mary?
It's a second. I'm timestamping where my co-host swore.
Sorry, Joe.
All right, we'll let Ivarwin answer the
All
question.
right. We're going because of the cats. No, really, it's all about the lore, basically, behind the Elmeri Dominion. We have a bunch of lore freaks in the guild.
Joe, it
And
has nothing to do with the lore. Have you seen the Queen, Joe? It has everything to do with the Queen.
trying to sound smart here.
Queen.
typical male hormones, but yeah.
Holy cow!
All right, he's right. I'm doing it for the queen too. Let's be honest.
For the queen!
Or the Queen.
Wonder if the carpet matches the puke. Never mind.
Wow.
Wow,
Sorry.
we went there.
We're supposed to be all-stars, right?
All right, Andrew, let's bring it back home. So why Old Mary for Tamriel Foundry? Because I think you guys are gonna have your own guild.
Yeah, we have our own guild, Entropy Rising, but I don't know, it's like partially the underdog factor, like what Jesse said. I guess I'm pretty psyched to see new provinces as like the home provinces of that faction, because all three of those are ones we haven't seen, at least in any Elder Scrolls game in my lifetime that I really played. I started with Morrowind, so yeah, I'm excited about the provinces, just the underdog in Cyrodiil. You know, I'm a Daok veteran, and I always thought Ebonheart was going to be like Albion. You know, it's like the one realm that everyone plays, and then I don't know who's Hibs and who's mids, but Aldmeri works for me. So
All right, well that works. All right, let's look. Next big question.
You never got to me. Fail.
Brian, why would you like to be Old Mary? Is it because that's where your guild is going to be?
I might. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Redguard intrigues me, but I think I'm going to stick with Nord on what is it called? Ebonheart. Yeah. I've just always played
preparation.
Nord. That's my thing.
Gamer
Faction
points,
pride.
-5.
Fail. Okay, back to the questions.
Queen's hot.
Ebonheart equal alliance.
Apparently
Yes.
in
Okay,
chat,
so-
arrows will rape my face.
So here's a question from Tackle Shaft. I believe that that announced that we.
Do we have to edit that name out?
I hope not. I hope not. A Tackle Shaft. I believe that they announced that we will be able to use mods to accent the UI for the PC. What type of mods would everyone be interested in? So I'm assuming they're going to have something very simple relative to APIs and stuff like that.
Honestly, the UI doesn't intrigue me in the slightest. I was looking for the simplistic, if what they say is true, it's minimal to the utmost where it's like an Elder Scrolls game. I'm not going to want to modify it that much, I'm going to want to stick with that minimalistic stuff. What I wanted to see with the whole modding community, because I really do think ZeniMax needs to harness the power of the Elder Scrolls modding communities. I'd argue it is like the best modding community out there. Was sort of a Second Life thing going on where you're making armor sets and stuff like that, or just skins of armors that are then submitted to ZeniMax and improved and could be sold. And this was a possibility for how they could make their money, is cosmetics, like a Guild Wars 2 type system and that sort of thing. But as far as UI goes, no, I'm not interested in it much at all.
Now, it's funny that you say that, because when I was there with most of the guys here last October, they had the guy in charge of the modding for Skyrim. He was sitting to the left of Jesse and myself, and on the other side was Ivarwin. And the thing I kept bringing up was well, why don't you set it up so that we could mod for Elder Scrolls Online, do a cash shop, people can submit and it gets approved, and then take 20-30% or whatever your thing is off the top, and then now they could get paid. I mean, that would be a very interesting dynamic, because to quote another game, PlanetSide 2 is getting ready to do something very similar to that. And that's what I found out at E3. So I'm like, that would be a great way to capture that modding community, bring it over to this space, allow them to create a widget or whatever, get it proved, get it vetted, because it would sit in their little inbox or whatever, and then that could be part of the whole entire transaction. What are your thoughts?
And then they
on
could
that?
sell it to the console as well.
Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting, but then that's a way that ZeniMax could take their 10, 20, whatever % off the top. That modder gets paid, the community gets jazzed, and then that's going to just be a self-licking ice cream cone. More and more people are going to want to go into that and get their payment structure going on, right? Mm-hmm. Or am I just in left field on that one?
Sounds
I
delicious.
get pretty uncomfortable with the idea of charging for mods, but I guess if it were implemented in a smooth way, I could be okay with it. I don't know. It makes me a little bit uneasy. As does modding that gets into the realm of player-generated content, because I've seen too many examples of gamers that will submit stuff that's completely out of left field.
I mean, but that's a difference, and that's a risk, I think, where you leave Elder Scrolls, the single-player game, and you enter that MMO space, right? In the online space, you normally have a cash shop to change the way you look. Or you have to earn in-game widgets or credits to buy it. So I mean, they could play with that model any kind of way, but I'm just trying to say that's definitely a stretch between the two different platforms. Because at the end of the day, these guys they're in a very hard position. They're either gonna piss off to some degree the MMO players, or they're gonna piss off to some degree the Elder Scrolls players. I mean, the fact that they're going to just get a perfect, everybody's loving it to the same amount, I don't see that being possible. I think everyone's going to be happy at the end.
Mark, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I really think if they hold true to their vision, how can we make this an Elder Scrolls game? I think they're going to make the MMO space and the console space extremely happy, as long as they hold true to that.
I respectfully disagree.
Also, you guys are underplaying the UI modding system. Do you know what game out there right now only has a moddable UI? World of Warcraft. What's the #1 modded game in history? World of Warcraft. Why? The combat log. Does ESO have a combat log? Why? Yes, it does. So, what can it open up for the game? Quite a bit.
That's
what I was mentioning with why PC will end up always being the server first, because we'll have all the mods to make the perfect moves constantly in game. That's just how it's going to happen.
That's the problem though. I don't want those types of mods that you find in WoW, because then you come to the point where people or groups are going to require you to have deadly boss mods, require you to have recount and heal bot and all that kind of stuff that clogs up my screen. I don't want that crap on
deadly
my screen.
boss mods wouldn't work for ESO anyway because of how their combat system.
I understand that. I'm just saying though, in general though, those mods that just take up my screen, I don't want it.
Then why go that don't require that? Why not don't download it?
Because
there's a lot of different
WoW,
opinions, though. I mean, I, as a gamer, I want as much information about my character as I can get. I want to know exactly what buffs are affecting me. I want to know exactly what debuffs are affecting me. I want to know rich tooltips about my abilities, their effectiveness, what my stats are contributing to my character. I want to know how much damage I'm doing. I want to know all of that information in a way that I can process in real time. And that's something that mods tend to do a really good job of. So as long as they follow through with delivering those tools to the Lua modding community, give us the combat log, give us those tools, then I think they can please everyone, because it is an optional decision. You can have as immersive an experience as you want. You can tailor the game to suit your personal preferences.
Now,
there it is. That's it right there. Kyle wants one thing, Andrew wants something completely different. All right. The thing is you have to enter an MMO, okay? Especially with something like this, okay? Options are never, ever, ever, ever a bad thing. The more options, the better, okay? Because people out there say, oh, that's something I don't want, then I won't take it. And then the next person will say, that's something I do want, though, and I am going to take it. I think a lot of people who play MMOs have forgotten personal accountability. If you don't want something,
I agree.
don't download it. And if there's a guild out there or a social group out there that says you must have this, don't go there. Be personally accountable for the way you want to play, and then gravitate towards those social places that support something like that.
Yeah, there's not going to be.
That's what forums are for.
You're not going to have any kind of shortness of guilds out there.
Yeah.
But with the topic of options, I feel like one of the key things that always happens is with mods and all that information that comes out. Eventually, you get to the point, and I want this to be as far away from the launch as possible. But eventually, no matter what, you're going to get to the point where every build is looked at, and there's one good build for every single combo. And it will eventually happen. And I know you can say, like, you know, do your accountability and do what you want to do to have fun and play the way you want to play. But if you want to get somewhere in these games, you have to join guilds that are going to say, this is how you do it. Or you don't get to see this boss ever. Deal with it. And if you want to see that boss, you have to change your playstyle. And I think that's a problem that if there's options, I'd like options to exist long term, not just in terms of mods, but in terms of playstyle. And I want to have these spells. Because last at E3 versus at PAX, I played the exact same class, but played two different styles. And one I loved way more than the other. And I feel like that is something that should be considered in this process.
That's a game developer issue. You know, Nick Conkle and Maria Alaprando should be sitting there together saying to themselves, how can we make these boss fights meld with various types of builds, all the different kinds of builds that we could possibly think of? How do we make this boss in this, in quotes, you know, raid or large-scale PvE content? How do we make this boss reachable through all different types of builds? And that's a developer issue. And if we see something in the game, okay, if we see something in the game that we have to have a specific build, a specific healing build or DPS build or tanking build in order to achieve or to get through a certain mechanic, then we need to be vocal about that as a community in the forums, or send the community team an email and say, hey, you know, the best way in order to get through this mechanic is with this build, and I don't like that.
And that I feel like that goes down to what WoW became. It wasn't like this in the beginning, but it's what WoW became, which was gimmick fights. Every boss fight became a gimmick. There was always something you had to do at a certain time to avoid something. And the longer Elder Scrolls can stay away from gimmicky fights, then we won't need certain people for certain situations, and you can bring who you want. And I think that'll be a big thing for them as well, because you can only dodge so many fireballs with like little circles on the ground before it's like, we get it. We get
You're
it.
here.
Stay out of the poop.
But so I mean, we kind of went a couple of different directions with that kind of discussion. I mean, I think UI mods or mods period can be great for the people who enjoy them. You don't have to get them if you don't want. They can be great tools if you want to min max, but I think they can be that whole double-edged sword that I think we were talking about if they become the requirement to go raid. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So
You can't join my group unless you have this mod installed. That's the thing that would kill me in this game. And the moment I have to exit out of my game, log out my character to go grab a bunch of resources, like, it's been broken for me. Like, and I know that some people, that's their thing. They love that. They love to whip out the spreadsheets, and, you know, that's what MMOs have been for them. I'm hoping this would kind of break the mold with that. So if there's a tool you really need, that's fine. Let the developers actually put that in the game at launch then, or patch it in. Don't make me have to go install it to be viable.
Blizzard did that with WoW. They noticed that such a percentage of players had certain mod, and so they added it in as a UI, like with the default browser, like a kind of a watered down auctioneer and stuff like that.
okay, so let's move on unless anyone has anything that they're very passionate about for that specific thing. I think the next question, I think the big one, especially talking pre-show with Andrew, was the launch has been pushed back. It's no longer definitely sometime in 2013. It's now spring of 2014. What are your thoughts in terms of of that just period? You know, is it a good thing? Does it concern you? You know, what are your thoughts? So we'll start with Joe.
It doesn't concern me at all, and I'm gonna let those people out there know that I'm willing to bet they're not pushing a date back for a console like everyone's screaming about. Make it better. I don't care how long it takes. I want a polished, beautiful game. Big deal. I'll wait the extra 3 months or 4 months. If it comes out better, I'll wait.
All right, Brian.
And
Jesse, you had something?
Oh, I was gonna say, and really, when you think about it, now that because the only other game that was even on my radar as an MMO was Titan, that's gone now. So that's wherever that goes, wherever dead games go. So really, this is, I mean, this is the big MMO title coming down the line. There is nothing else that I can think of at the moment that is even on the radar at this level of like in-depth, great quality content. So. Good. Let them push it back. Let them make it perfect. And because there's nothing to compete with them right now, because everything else is slowly just fading away, and there's no big launch titles on the way. So I'm fine with it. And I know people are like, well, what about this game and this game? They aren't nearly as big. Sorry, fellas.
Yeah.
They do not have the name. They don't have an Elder Scrolls name behind it. There's nothing at that level against it right now. There's no company doing that. So good. Let them make it better.
Kyle, what are your thoughts of the launch date? Of the pushback?
I'm fine with it. I know a lot of people are arguing, saying that it is because of the consoles, but the devs have said explicitly that it's not because of that, especially Brian Wheeler. I remember with the interview he had with MMORPG about PvP. Very beginning of it, he said it was not because of the consoles. It's because of the beta feedback they were getting. They realized they had way too much stuff that they had to do, that it would not be able to be done unless they really rushed it, and then we'd start seeing bugs and stuff that just we don't want. So I would rather have a few upset people because of the pushback than a bunch of just pissed off people that quit the game because it's broken when it comes out.
Okay. Ivarwin?
I loved this. I was so excited to hear that the game was going to get pushed back because it shows to me that they're willing to make adjustments on the fly for the betterment of the game, and there's nothing there's nothing better than seeing someone take responsibility for the quality of the product that they're trying to release. And I gained a tremendous amount of respect and confidence in this game that just by hearing this. So I was really excited to hear about that.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with anything that you guys have said. I think you're just about right on. I mean, I wouldn't say I was excited to hear about the pushback. I mean, obviously, it's a negative. It is a negative. I mean, we can point out the positives to it, and I think that the positives are really significant.
I cried a little. So.
All right.
But I think that, one thing is, will the extra time allow them to finish certain features that maybe weren't quite going to make it for the end of this year? I mean, we've heard them talk a bit about adventure zones. Is that something that they'll be able to launch with now that we're looking at 2014? We've seen just some brief video clips of Cyrodiil. I mean, if they need a little bit of extra time to deliver a really polished, really balanced PvP experience on that level at launch, then that's great. So, I mean, if they need extra time, I am totally understanding of that. I hope that they can use those extra months to make sure they get their ducks in a row concerning the endgame features that they plan to launch with. Because I think that's the biggest thing that we haven't seen yet that the MMO community needs to be convinced about.
All right, so let me ambush Josh with this one. Do you think that they pushed it back? And then I guess everyone can chime in. Do you think they pushed it back because through the beta they realized, hey, this is kind of going in the wrong direction? Or do you think they really just did it to fix the obvious bugs but add more content?
There's two sides of me, right? There's the cynic and then there's the optimist. The cynic thinks that, the moment this flashed across the screen, spring 2014, my mind went immediately to consoles, right? Oh, it's because of the consoles. Then they came out with the interviews that said, no, it's because of the polish. We want to make a better game. And they specifically pointed out, Mark, what you just said, beta feedback from fans. So what I'm hoping, and this might be just a pipe dream, but people in beta were like, look, we want this, this, and this. This will make it feel more like an Elder Scrolls game. Crime system, Dark Brotherhood, all this crap, right? And that's why they moved it back, was maybe to add some of those things that in people's minds would make this MMO more of an Elder Scrolls game. So that's the hope anyway.
Okay, very cool. Nick?
I think people need to realize that for like AAA titles on a console, they're going to build the game for you to play it for a set amount of time. You know, they're going to tell you it's like 20 hours of content. For an MMO, you're building something that you want to last for a decade.
Yep.
That is something that you have to put a ton of work into. It needs to be perfect or else it won't last that 10 years.
And realistically, how many MMOs have lasted that 10 years? I mean,
the greatest ones have, the others have not. You know, you're talking Eve, EverQuest. Well, what else has lasted 10 years?
Well, I mean,
Years old.
there's a lot that have lasted a long time, but they aren't great. And
Right.
I think I speak for all of us when I say I don't care if this lasts, 50 years. I want it to be great all 50 years. Like, it's one of those things where if I'm going to play it, I want it to be great the entire time I play it. So, just because a game lasts a long time doesn't mean it equals greatness. So I hope when this launches, it's good, and I hope it lasts that long. I don't know.
I agree that longevity doesn't necessarily equal greatness, but you can't have greatness without longevity. So it needs to be successful.
All right, nerds.
Wordsmith. All right, so let's see. Next question: Alliance versus Alliance combat, which a lot of folks who played Daok kind of remember. In PvP, especially in open world, normally, what is it? Might makes right. There's strength in numbers, Zerg, whatever you want to call it. Do you feel that Cyrodiil, the PvP element of this game, which I'm looking most forward to out of the whole game, is going to be the playground for the really big guilds, or do you think that like the smaller guilds are going to just kind of be like the extras and stuff? Do you think like a smaller guild can actually have a place in this, or what? What are your kind of thoughts on that? And so we'll start off with Avarwan. Actually, we'll start off with Kyle. We started off with Avarwan last time.
Sweet. I would love to see them actually working together, because you're going to see the major guilds going for the keeps, and something went off with the screen.
Yeah, I just screwed it. Hold on. Keep talking.
Okay.
Pay no attention.
Hi, everybody.
Those are not
Hi,
my eyes.
everybody. Hi, everybody. And then there was
Kyle's
one.
eyes.
Yay.
And then there was one.
Okay, I'm gonna go. All right, so yeah. Oh god.
Oh,
I'm talking anyways. I'm going.
Wow.
All right, so you see
Pay no
large
attention to
guilds.
the man behind the curtain.
You'll see large guilds going for the keeps. That's just what they're gonna do. But then I see the smaller guilds forming with those larger ones to start going after the resources and stuff that are going to be surrounding those keeps, because they know that will actually end up helping out the larger guilds with taking that keep, because the resources help defend the actual keep itself. Now, you had mentioned Zergs and stuff. I don't think you'll see so many Zergs in this game because of the sheer size of Tamriel, or I'm sorry, Cyrodiil specifically, because it's so massive that Zergs will have no place, because they'll all be in one area, and there's so much more of Cyrodiil out there that they're just going to be capping points left and right. So, I don't think Zergs will be a problem or an issue. So, hopefully, at least though, to go back to the previous thing, we'll be seeing large guilds and small guilds working together, because they'll find that it works best in that situation.
Jesse, what are your thoughts?
I hope that, if you remember when we were actually there and talked about it with them, there was a lot of things that you could do besides just go take on a castle or a fort or whatever. And so I'm hoping that those add up and they play a very significant role, rather than like, I took your wheat farm. Like, what does that actually get you? I don't know.
Job's
but hopefully,
Wheat.
yeah. They took our wheat. I feel like there's got to be, or like a dungeon or something, and those add up, or so everything adds up to the war effort. and hopefully there are events that happen, and I'm hoping that small groups will play just as big a role as the bigger ones. And I guess it's up to what they've done with that space they've created. I don't know.
In some ways, I think the smaller groups can be more effective.
Yeah.
Jungle warfare.
Okay, so
Picking off people, running back and forth, just appear out of nowhere. There's a lot of potential for chaos, but it's up to what you're allowed to do. I mean, it's their rules, so we'll have to see.
So Joe, let's pull on that thread. I mean, in a lot of places, in a lot of MMOs, large guilds can lock down areas. They can, take over choke points, right, for lack of a better words. And just because they have the sheer numbers, I mean, what more really can they do? The smaller guilds.
Andrew, you got something to say?
Oh, it's your.
No.
Catch!
His hand, okay.
Hey, teacher.
It all depends on the open world combat, how it plays out, where the way shrines are, where the resources are around the keeps, how the keeps play out. Small groups can easily take out an off-the-way resource than a large group can, especially when they're trying to defend the entire keep. As well as, say, for instance, you got a large guild in the keep trying to defend it, and they're getting picked off little bit, but their waypoint is a ways away because we took most of their resources. We have small groups going in between that way shrine and that keep, picking them off as they try to get back. How are they going to get reinforcements? It really depends on what, like you said, is implemented in this game and how the world's going to play out.
Well, I just saw somebody in chat, Kurgan. He has my exact thoughts that bigger guilds will end up making allies with smaller guilds, and I hope that guilds will start to work together for like a greater cause. And like the big guild that's kind of moving everything together kind of tells the smaller guilds to go do smaller objectives along the side.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting point because, I mean, even, we're all hoping to try to get into beta and start playing that. I mean, we've already, amongst ourselves, just because we know each other and we all know that we're going to be playing Aldmeri, we all know that we all have guilds. We've already been like, hey, let's do like some kind of informal alliance or, however that system's going to work out so that,
We want the other alliances to think that they actually have a chance.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Through the world of illusion.
Hypothetically,
people that are working together. But the point is alliances are going to be built, right? And that's, it's like a web of trust. It's a circle of trust, right?
Alliances will be built. Lands shall be forged. Opponents crushed.
Dude, that was awesome. We need to talk to Jesse about getting
You
some
do it in your Bane voice, Yvonne.
Voice acting,
getting
man.
some part-time work, dude.
Shank's got the Bane voice. I'm terrible at it.
Nice. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Well, I like to just look, I guess, at my experiences in gaming right now and what MMOs have had the most fun PvP as far as small groups go. And PlanetSide 2, I had a lot of fun basically looking for the Zergs and seeing where they were going and then playing off of that with my friends. And I think this was helped out a lot by the fact that zones of conflict were actually marked on the map. So whenever a big battle was going down, you could look at it just by glancing at the map. And so me and my buddy would go then and hit the territories that just weren't occupied or nothing was going on. And Brian Wheeler actually just mentioned in his MMORPG interview that this, in fact, will be in the Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, so it will be in the Elder Scrolls Online. You will get to see, they'll actually even mark what faction, too, is fighting in any given zone. So say if you're looking to kill some Nords, we're all fighting for the Queen, we're looking to slay some Nords, we would just look for the Ebonheart Pact symbol on the map and maybe go after those guys, or avoid them altogether and, outwit them. Us elven brains, we got some cunning, maybe we'll go around them. So I think the map thing will help a lot with the smaller groups and trying to coordinate around, getting around those large Zergs.
Good answer. Kyle?
What's up?
That's it. Just
How you
hi.
doing, buddy?
How's it going?
All right.
Plan.
Sorry, I was in chat. What's going on?
We're gonna have this like small group of elitists that are gonna go out and pwn everybody, like 5 or 6 of us. Where we have a master plan. We have a hidden weapon called a shank, and we're gonna plant him near flowers as bait.
Shank the tank.
Then he pieces.
And then he says as we take care of everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Next
All right.
question.
So do you think that there's going to be any problems or issues with the fact that they're going to have the? I mean, it worked for Dark Age of Camelot, but do you think in 2013 there's going to be any issues with the PvP being instanced and centralized in Cyrodiil versus like for people who want open world PvP? Do you think that's
Nope.
going to be any problem at all?
Nope. Because
I-
you can go ahead, Jesse.
No, please.
Okay,
I was
cool.
gonna say I hope it's open world. I want to be able to run in there and murder people and run back out, and not have to cross any zone lines or anything. That's all I want to say.
Cyrodiil is already going to have that kind of built into the whole open world PvP because, again, it's so massive and there's going to be quests you can do. There's going to be public dungeons you can go into. There's going to be a bunch of mats you can find, pick, flowers, whatever you want to do. You can do all that in Cyrodiil while having that while having that feeling of someone being behind your shoulder who's about to stab you in the back. So you can still have that PvP server feel even though there isn't an actual world PvP.
Very cool. All right, so I think that's all our questions. So we can go ahead and
I want to do the PvP question.
no.
It's too late for you.
Tamriel Foundry, we're ending this now. Go ahead, man.
No PvP question for you. Shut up, sir.
Well, I mean, as I guess the representative Daok vet on the channel, on the show, I don't know. I think that the difference between the large group and small group dynamic is pretty interesting because in this type of structure before, it's often the large groups that tend to get things done. Like they're sort of the movers and shakers. They're responsible for advancing the stage of the realm war. But it's actually sort of the small groups that tend to get the glory because they're the ones that are making like the YouTube gank vids and they're the ones that are running the like elite PvP crews that are like wiping out groups 3 times their number. And if ESO can have that sort of roaming dynamic to it, they can put a lot of incentives on getting people to spread out because like Josh said, or like Kyle said, I'm sorry, I forget which one of you,
It's
but
the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. They've got all the PvE objectives. They've got all the reasons to, expand out over all of Cyrodiil. You've got your alliance's home area of the province. You've got the other alliances that have their sort of home area. So it's like, do you want to play defense? Do you want to play offense? It's going to get people moving in all sorts of different directions. And then everyone's going to come together and coalesce when there's that big keep raid or that big Elder Scroll raid. So Elder Scrolls are like this mechanic that was like relics in Daok, which is like this very powerful artifact that you can capture for your faction. And I think it's going to do a good job of naturally having people move in between the large group and small group dynamic on their own without necessarily dedicating themselves to just one or just the other.
I think the great point that you and Varwin made relative to that whole concept is the fact that obviously a smaller group is going to be able to move usually quicker, faster, and they're going to have a smaller signature, especially if you're trying to keep an eye on an area. They're going to be able to get to places. So I mean that's just the way it is, combat in the real world. So that completely makes sense. If you have 1,000 people in a guild or whatever and they're all there, well, that's going to take a big signature. It's going to take a whole lot of coordination to get them to go from A to B, and it's going to take a while. So, I mean, that completely makes sense, especially if you're looking at, raids, not in the sense of like in-game PvE, but kind of more like a commando-style raid to go hit something behind enemy lines or, at some place that they're not looking. So that totally makes some sense. So I dig that. Okay, I think that concludes all of our questions for this episode. Probably do it in another 6 weeks or so. So why don't we go around the horn and let you guys go ahead and plug what you guys have coming up, plug your sites and everything. We'll start with the Quest Gaming Network. You want to go, Joe?
Unmuting's great. Evarwin is the best at this. I defer to him every time.
Am I?
Arwen, you have the radio voice. Go ahead, man.
Hey, so if you like to hear stuff about Elder Scrolls Online, make sure you go to ElderScrollsOffTheRecord.com.
Yay.
You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Our RSS feed is on ElderScrollsOnline.com as well. And please make sure to check out the Quest Gaming Network, QuestGamingNetwork.com, for general gaming articles. We do more than just podcasts, guys. We report and we podcast, and you guys can weigh in as well on our site with your comments. So we hope to see you there.
Cool. Andrew?
Can I get Evarwin to do my voiceover advertisement too?
TamrielFoundry.com. If you
Yeah,
don't
Alex.
suck at life, you're on TamrielFoundry.com.
That was brilliant. I don't even know where to go after that.
I mean,
But yeah, I'm Andrew from Tamriel Foundry, and you should check us out. So, you know, as Evarwin said, so you don't suck at life. TamrielFoundry.com.
Jesse.
Suck at life. Really simply, you can go to jessecox.com now, and it will just take you to my YouTube page. How about that for a thing? That's called Synergy, people. And Twitter, Jesse Cox. You can go there. That's a thing, too. I do stuff that probably isn't worth your time, but watch it anyway.
Nice. Brian.
I'm over at gameskinny.com. My name is Rothalak on the site, in case anybody was wondering. Also, go check out Guild Launch. That is our guild hosting site. So, about GameSkinny, I guess I should say. Anybody who wants to say anything, come over and write an article. And me,
Anything?
Kate, Amy, yes, anything. No, about video games, I guess. Culture, tips, reviews, news.
Can I write an article about how extremely attractive the Queen is? And how everyone...
You really
Look.
could.
For the queen.
I wish you would, Jesse.
I will personally make sure it makes it on the front page.
Can it be a fanfic of me and the Queen?
What the heck was that?
It's awesome!
50 Shades of Queen Aaron.
All right.
Please,
Called me into
somebody-
her chamber.
Josh
At
Kyle.
first I was unsure of myself, but I went in anyway.
Oh,
I'm telling you.
cat, you.
All right. Which one of you two? Josh, Kyle, which one of you guys are going to do the Shadowcast?
Josh, have at it.
All right, well, it's
Josh.
real simple. Just go to shoddycast.com, and that links to everything, to our YouTube page, our Facebook, Twatters, all of that stuff. You go through
Twatters. Nice.
Shoddycast. Yeah.
Twatters.
Are you taking the wrong way?
All right. And I'm Mark Taylor, aka Lord Hammer from GuildArmor.com. We are recruiting, so come check us out. That's really the show, so thank you so much. We'll come back in probably, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. The reason why we do this is we don't want to cannibalize any of the organic content that each of these individual sites would make on their own, but we do want to try to make sure we build and grow the community. I've been getting hit up by a number of fan sites who want to try to be on, so we're going to try to figure out some kind of way to get some folks in here, and hopefully maybe we can get some of the devs to come on the show and chat with us and chat with you folks. So that's really it. Thanks
You
a
have to
lot.
put them in the middle right there.
We'll
That'd
put them
be
right in the middle where it says,
right in the middle.
where it says Elder Scrolls. So
Look up at them like,
so thanks, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Boy.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
And the audio is...
Broke it.
all right, I heard World War Z is horrible, so I'm gonna go see it right now. I'm very excited about this.
Oh, yeah.
I heard it sucks, so I can't wait. Ugh.
Brad
Bad
Pitt.
movies are the best movies.
Brad Pitt, FTW.
You know he'll do something wonderful. So I can't wait. That's what I'm doing right now.
If anybody wants to hang out and talk with folks in the chat, you're more than welcome. If you guys want to go ahead and hang up, go ahead and do it. And thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem.
We'll try to do this in, maybe 6-7 weeks or so, whenever something interesting happens and we feel like talking to everybody.
So I see lots of questions going through the chat right now, and I noticed one that says, how does stealth work? Those are the kind of questions we can't ask or answer. Yes.
We can,
Answer.
based on what they've said already.
Well,
Well,
what
yeah,
happens is you become unnoticed by people around you, and then you just sort of like stealth around. And
So,
We know it's-
Varwin, is that the definition of stealth?
I have become I've rendered myself unseen by those around me. Time to jostle the pockets of those around me as well. Oh, this is interesting.
Yes.
Nah.
Andrew, how many women do you get from your sweet scruff?
I can't count anymore. I need a UI add-on.